Okay, now that we have a better understanding of what characters are, I'd also like to mention that we can do some checks on characters and we can also perform some operations on characters. And so in the CC type file, we have some functions where we can do some checks on characters. For example, we can do a check to see if the character is an alphabetic letter, so an uppercase or lowercase character in the alphabet. We can also check if it is a digit, so a decimal digit, 0 to 9. We can check if it is an alphanumeric digit, so a digit and an uppercase or lowercase letter as in the previous rows. We can check if the argument is printable or whether it is white space, so a space or a new line character, a tab, a vertical tab, and so on. We've covered those characters and what they do before. We can also check if the character is an uppercase or a lowercase, or if it is a punctuation character, so an exclamation, a colon, semicolon, braces, and so on. And based on these checks, of course, we can do something maybe in a for loop or a function, which brings me to the next slide where we can do some operations on those characters. So we can do to lower, and then we can pass in the argument. This is going to return the converted argument, so it's going to convert that to a lowercase, or it's going to return the unmodified argument if it is not convertible. And the same thing with the toUpper function where we pass in demochar, for example. That is going to convert the argument to uppercase, or it's going to return the unmodified argument if it is not convertible. And as we'll see in upcoming lectures, this is really handy where we have character arrays or C-style strings, where we can go and perform certain operations on those strings. So we can convert all of the lowercase letters to uppercase and make sure that all of the letters are uppercase, for example, and stuff like that, as we'll see in upcoming lectures. Always remember to check your favorite C++ reference. So in this case, I'm checking CPP reference. We're checking the standard library for this CC type header, and we have the functions here. So the test and then also the operations to lower, to upper. And so isAlpha, for example, I have that opened up right here. We can check what this checks for. So currently it's going to check if the given character is an alphabetic character. And then we can see that alphabetic characters, of course, are the uppercase letters and the lowercase letters within the alphabet. And then also you can check what the return value is going to be. I don't have all of the functions summarized for you in the table. You can check out some of the other ones in here, such as the isXdigit, which is going to check if the character is a hexadecimal character and so on. Before we look at some examples, I'd just like to reiterate that you should not get confused with this, for example. So I have this mychar, and then I initialize it to this character. So I initialize it to the character 5. Now let's go and print that out right here. If we build and run, we get 5. I can do Ctrl-K, Ctrl-I for the information on that. And you can see we get 53, and that is converted to char basically. With this, we can see that the character 6 is going to be represented with the ASCII code 54. Okay, so if I do 54 and I build and run, we should get 6 now. So the point of this is to not get to the character 5, where we have 5 here between single quotes, confused with what we do with the assignment. And then also, of course, you can do a breakpoint. And then I'll run the local Windows debugger. And in the locals window, we can see that we have the mychar variable. We have the ASCII code. Basically, it stores 54, which is the ASCII code for the character 6. It is of type char. And I'll just stop that. Also, if you think about it for a second, you can do mychar is equal to mychar plus 1. And that will also then evaluate to the character 6. Or that is the value 54, which will get assigned to my character, which will then store that value, or the character 6. Same thing if we change it to something like B, I'll run the local Windows debugger again. Then we'll see the code is 98 and we get B for the character. So that is another place where you can check that. I just wanted to mention these few things to you before we move on. Okay, in this example, in the main function, I have this char, mychar, which I initialize to the B character. Then I can do a couple of checks on that. So I can check if the character mychar is alpha, so is an alphabetic character. Then I can print that out. It is alphabetic. If it is uppercase, then I can print that out. It is an uppercase letter. If it is lowercase, I can print that out. I can also check if it is a punctuation character, and if it is a digit, for example. So instead of having B, I can do something like 1, 2, and so on. You can think for a second what's going to happen when I build and run this. Notice that I have the CC type file included. I'd also like to note that I can actually comment that out, and that should work fine in this case. Build and run, and of course this is a lowercase, and it is alphabetic. You can see that actually works fine, and that's because it is included in some way in the IO stream. But just to be explicit, I'm including it here. Okay, we've seen we can do some checks. Now we can also do a conversion, so we can perform an operation on that character. We can do to upper, to lower, and we can pass in the argument. So I'll just comment this out. We currently have a lowercase, b is a lowercase, so I'm going to call this to upper function, pass in that character, and this is going to return the uppercase of that. And we assign that to the mychar again, and then we're going to do these checks again. Build and run, we get p is alphabetic, of course, and then also p is an uppercase letter. Also, if I change this to 1 now, comment this out, change this to 1 or 5 or something like that, okay. And then of course we will only get that is a digit. Then you can also test for things such as the punctuation, such as the exclamation. Build and run once more, and that is a punctuation character. Now don't get confused with this sort of stuff. Let's say we want to do the double quote like that. That will work fine because it is within single quotes. So if I build and run, that will work fine. That is a punctuation character. But what happens if we do a single quote like that? You'll get an error. So think for a second, how can we fix this sort of error? Okay, well, if you think back to the module C++ 101, we can do backslash followed by the single quote. And then if I build and run, that should work fine now. You can see that is now a punctuation character. That works fine. Similarly, if we want the backslash like that, you will also get an error. If you remember, think about how we can fix this. Alright, I will continue and add another backslash, so we have 2 backslashes. If we build and run, we get a backslash. It will now store the backslash in the character variable. Okay, so again, don't get confused with that. Always remember the escape characters to fix those sorts of errors. Okay, to wrap up, we've discussed the fact that we can test characters for various properties to check whether those characters are within a category. And we've also seen that we can convert characters between upper and lowercase. This will become useful if you want to process some input and you want a specific format for an output, so you can run some algorithm to provide that particular output that you want. And with that, we are going to wrap up this lecture. I'll see you next time.